For the last part of this series, this summary statement about charcoal work in Rebelle, I want to remind you first where we came from. We did a bunch of warm-up drawings, cool exercises, Notan drawings, adding a third value to the Notan drawings. We looked at how we can simplify, looking for all the shapes of shadow, building up our contrasts, looking at how to create tone, contrast, and depth and value and all this stuff with just using shape drawing, right? And we looked at that, and then we did a kind of a beautiful in-depth portrait. And now we're going to try to take that even to the next level. And so for today, our warm-up drawing here is to do the inverse. I just took some charcoal and I drew a black square, and now I'm using white charcoal on top of the black charcoal to do the opposite of what I usually do. Usually I'm finding the shape of shadow. Here I'm finding the shape of light amidst the shadow. And this sort of thing is just, it's just me wanting to model that, yes, sometimes we get bored of a process. We need a different way of looking at it. We want to approach the same problem, learn the same skills, but in a totally different way so that we can stay fresh. And that's the whole point of this exercise, doing the same thing. Coming in with your brush setting at 1 or 2, laying in all the shapes, then coming in, switching the brush mode over to blend, and just kind of knocking it all down. Where you have soft edges, make them soft. Where you have hard edges, keep them hard, and just kind of work your shapes into each other, making it look as good as you can. Now, this drawing has some technical problems. There's a little too much space between the nose and the lips. There's some stiffness in the way that I've rendered some of the forms, and it wasn't a perfect drawing, but it was a warm-up drawing. And a lot of times our warm-up drawings are just that. They're just for warming up. And, maybe we're on the phone or we're distracted or we're tired, and it's totally okay. I don't want to kind of create the illusion that everything we do is supposed to be perfect and wonderful. I mean, I don't know anybody whose life looks like that. And I don't know anyone whose art looks like that. We're all full of just tons of mistakes, and our lives are just about kind of trying to work with that, right? So if we get super freaked out about our drawings not being perfect, I think it's going to take the humanity out of it and also a little bit of the joy. But that was a good little warm-up, and thanks for checking that out. And now let's get on to the main event. Now that I had the stiffness out of my hand and all of my kind of, I don't know, hopefully my boring brushstrokes are gone, I wanted to sort of take this to the next level and really push all of the concepts that we embraced over the course of these different exercises. This final drawing is going to embrace chaos. It's going to embrace mess. It's going to embrace all the things that make charcoal so incredibly fun, both in real life and in this digital life here. So what I'm doing, and this is really sped up so you don't have to watch me belabor all the little details. What's going on here is that I'm just using the charcoal, the eraser, and the blending tool to sort of turn that big initial mess into something slightly coherent. And the dance here is to find the right amount of mess and the right amount of form so that things hold together. If you needed some kind of art historical context or framework to look at this through, you might consider looking at the Impressionists, who across the spectrum of their work, you might have someone like Renoir, whose work had a different approach to capturing the movement versus capturing the form. And you'll see a lot of the Impressionists would be grappling with this concept, like how far can we push this mark making so that we almost lose all the form? And then others would say, I don't like that. I want it to still have the form of a tree, but feel like the tree is sort of alive, right? And it can feel the movement of the tree, the impression of the tree in the wind, in the light as the light is shifting. And in the same way, I'm trying to find a balance here between the order and the chaos, the movement and the solidity. And my reference picture was very intentional. It was the most kind of crazy-haired black and white picture I could find on pexels.com. And I wanted that because I wanted to sort of be able to embrace, not enhance, I wanted to embrace the layers and the texture and the contrast and the mess. And so that's what you see me doing here. And my initial lay-in was so crazy and my drawing was not very accurate, but that was okay. That was part of the plan. This was not supposed to be a perfect portrait. This was not supposed to be something I sell to a client. This is supposed to be an experiment. And let's see where this experiment goes. As you can see, I made a copy of my initial layer, and I kind of wanted to see if we could go back and forth with this and see kind of where we started, where we went, and then how it ended up. And so we'll kind of see if we can do that breakdown at the end. But until we get there, I just want to keep fiddling with some of these shapes. And as you can see, the drawing is getting very tight at this point. I'm kind of losing the rawness of my initial lay-in, and it's all getting very kind of orderly. And as you see this drawing progress, it's going to be that kind of push and pull of the shapes, the nudging it toward chaos and nudging it back toward order, and this sort of dance between. This is a matter of taste, but I did want to show you my way of resolving this situation, this kind of question, Sometimes when we draw just because we're drawn to something, and other times we have a question that's kind of nudging at us. And for me, the question here was, what is kind of my idea of what the most aesthetic balance is between that order and that mess. And so I've made another copy of the layer so I can kind of show you this drawing at these different stages. And here what I'm doing is I'm literally using the watercolor brush with the opacity set really low and the water set really high so that I can lay in these splotches of water right on top of the drawing. And you're going to start to see it take over. And these splotches are going to start interacting and distressing and distorting my edges. And I'm using these not randomly. I'm actually very tactically placing them, sort of like you would planting flowers in a garden. You would stretch them out to such a degree that you would have them dispersed in a sort of an aesthetic way, right? In that same fashion, I'm trying to very intentionally place the chaos so that it's going to distort the edges that I don't like. It's going to keep the edges that I do, and I'm going to push those values, paint back on top, and create the kind of feeling I want. In the end, we'll see how this works out, but the idea here was I wanted to take the concepts that I explored in that first portrait, the one that was kind of very refined and had little bits of intentional mess at the edges. But this time I wanted to push that mess right into the center, right into that triangle of the portrait where it's like bleeding across where the eyes and the nose are. You're going to have some of those distortions, and see if we can make it still work. And at this point, I like it so much more than I did before adding those distressing distortions. I think it adds so much to have it kind of look so handmade and so kind of crazy and chaotic. I think it has the feeling that I wanted. And my point in doing this right now is just to show you that it is okay to explore ideas when we work. In fact, that's the whole concept. So here it's looking really nice, and I feel like we're so close to making it the way I want it to be. I need to push some of these shadows and the contrast a little more. I need to get some bigger brush strokes to make the drawing feel more angular and let some of the rawness back in from that initial work that I did. I think it got a little too tidy around, kind of between the cheeks and the jawline and the skin above the mouth, that kind of stuff. It just got a little too tidy. So I just wanted to come in and put a few more angular marks to sort of make it again feel more like a drawing and less like a photo. So with all that said, here it is. This is the final drawing. A lot of texture, a lot of experimentation, a lot of risk, and to my mind, I think it was worth it. And I actually had a lot of fun with this, and I hope you will too. Thank you so much for your time, and take care.